So today I'm going to be talking about three components of a coach. So the first component of a coach is the roles. So I've picked 4 roles, and I've picked 2 roles which I'm going to explain within a non-elite sport, and 2 roles which I'm going to explain in an elite sport. So my first role is a motivator, and the example I've used for this is Joe Mills, who is a non-elite coach. So motivation can come by providing a stable environment in which to learn in a positive and safe atmosphere. Performers who constantly find negativity are certain at some point to become despondent and suffer a reduction in self-confidence and improvement. Now, what the coach will do, so for instance Joe Mills, he can use different techniques in order to motivate his performers. So one of the techniques is the kiss, kick, kiss method. So this technique would be applied in providing feedback such as in skill learning. So when he communicates with his performers, the emphasis with this technique would be to start with the feedback with a positive comment. For example, he could tell his basketball players that they had good positioning before they were to shoot the ball. And then after that, he would have a corrective comment, which should be presented in a positive manner as well. So for example, this could be to ensure that before you shoot the ball, your hands are in the correct position in order to get the correct follow through and aim it where you actually want the ball to go, which is essentially through the hoop. And then finally, he will give his performer another positive comment and possibly an action plan. So this will help them to improve on the skill that they might not be very good at, whilst motivating them to tell them that if they do practice, then they're going to improve. Now, I do think that the motivator role is more important in non-elite sport, as the main job for a non-elite coach is to help improve the young or non-elite athletes, to get them to a better standard of the sport that they're playing, whereas in elite sport, the athletes are already at the top level, so they don't need as much motivation because they already know what they have to do in order to stay at that top level. My second role is for the coach to be a good role model. So for this example, I've used the Burnbridge Wanderers football coach, Simon Windrum, and that's at a non-elite level. So in almost every coaching situation, performers or players will mostly look to their coach as a source of inspiration and knowledge, especially when the coach is working with younger athletes. So children often imitate the behaviour and manner of their coach. This is why it's vital that coaching is safe and responsible, and that the behaviour of the coach is considered good practice. The coach can also influence players' development in a number of ways. So firstly, it can affect their development in a social way, as sport offers a code of acceptable social behaviour, teamwork, citizenship, cooperation and fair play. It can also affect their development in a personal way, so players can be encouraged to learn life skills, promote their self-esteem, manage personal matters like careers or socialising, and develop a value system including good manners, politeness and self-discipline. Thirdly, it can psychologically affect their development, as coaches can create environments that help performers control emotions and develop their own identities. Confidence, mental toughness, visualisation and a positive outlook on life can be developed or improved. And finally, it can affect their health development as well. So, in taking care to design coaching or training sessions to include sufficient physical exercise, good health and healthy habits can be established and maintained. Now, I do believe that the role model role is more important within non-elite sport, as the performers may not know actually how to act when performing in sport. Maybe in football on a field of play, they may not know how to act, how to treat a referee, or how to treat opponents. But if they see what the manager is doing, or the coach is doing, and they see him to be a good role model, and treating others with respect and being polite towards other people, then they're likely to do the same thing. Whereas in elite sport, the athletes have already been through the non-elite stages, So they would have learned previously in their careers on how to act within the sporting field and how to treat others. So they're not going to look up to their manager as much for inspiration on how to act when playing sport. So the final two roles I'm going to be talking about is the manager and the innovator. So firstly, the manager. For this role, I've chosen Gareth Southgate, who's an England football coach. And it's important for him to be a good manager, as he'll need to know all the ins and outs of the football team, who to play, what positions each player will need to play in to get the best out of his team, any tactics he may want to add in to ensure that his team gets the best result possible. And he'll also need to have a good idea of what his team needs to improve on, so he'll need to manage them well and ensure that they're getting the correct training in between matches so they can improve from game to game to get better results. Now, I feel like the manager role is more important in elite sport, as quite often the objective of the game in elite sport is to win and to do the very best that you can. So managing the team well, choosing the right formations, choosing the right players to play is going to be very important when getting the vital points that you may need, or in Gareth Southgate's instance, to get his team to the World Cup or to do well in a World Cup. So within a non-elite sport, I don't think it's as important to have a good manager role. It's still important, but not as important, because the main role of non-elite sport is not always to win and to play players who are the best, but to help those develop who may not be as good, and to give them game time to help your whole team develop together. So the final role I'm going to be talking about is an innovator. So for this role, I've chosen Eddie Jones, who is the England rugby coach, which is obviously an elite sport. So it's important for Eddie Jones to be an innovator within his sporting team, because he may come up against opponents where he'll need to change his tactics and show good ideas of innovation, or he may need to quickly change his ideas in order to get the best result possible for his team. So, for instance, if England may come up against New Zealand, the All Blacks in rugby, then he may set up differently to as if he was playing against someone like Samoa or someone who wasn't as strong. So he might go more defensive and have different methods of attacking against the All Blacks in order to try and win for his team. Being a good innovator is more important within elite sport, because quickly changing tactics or formations is going to be the difference between winning and losing within the elite sport. Whereas in non-elite sport, coaches aren't always too bothered about whether their team wins or loses, and just wants to help their players develop. So won't always change the tactics or formations, because it might overcomplicate things with his team. They might not understand what's going on, and at the end of the day, they just need to develop as players before they get into anything to do with tactics or changing formations within games, as they may not be able to cope with it. So next I'm going to be talking about the responsibilities of a coach. So this is the second component. So the first responsibility I'm going to be talking about is within a non-elite sporting environment, and its legal obligations. So before a coach can go into the sporting environment, they will need a CRB check. So this check will ensure that the coach's previous convictions or sexual offences and violent criminal records are checked, to ensure that the people that he's coaching are in a safe environment. He will also need to be aware of the Children Act. So this includes the signs and symptoms of child abuse. So the first symptom of child abuse is physical abuse. So this is physical hurt or injury caused by an adult to a child. So signs of this may be bruising, cuts and burns. The second type of abuse is sexual abuse. So this is where adults use children to meet their own sexual needs. So signs of this is over-sexualized behaviour from a child. Emotional abuse. So this is a persistent lack of love and affection from the adult to the child. So signs of this would be that the child is withdrawn and reserved from social contact. Also, the child may be neglected. So this is where they have failure to meet the child's basic need. The adults have failure to meet the child's basic needs like food and clothing. So signs of this would be the child's appearance, and their clothing might be dirty or not what you'd expect it to look like. So when dealing with abuse, the coach would react calmly to avoid frightening the child. They would assure the child, take the child seriously. They would try to answer minimal questions to ensure that the child doesn't feel like they're being pressurised into anything. They may record what they say to the child. They can't promise to the child that it will be confidential, and they'll also report the findings that they may get from the child. Sports coaches will also need insurance. So if anything was to happen within the sport environment where the coach was, and the coach is considered liable and could be deemed negligent. So with anything sports related, there's also a certain amount of risks of what could happen to performers. And no matter how careful the coach may be, there's also a chance that some property that they're using, the facilities that they're using, or someone who is playing or performing with them could be damaged, and they can be held liable for it. So this is why insurance would be important to have for the coach. So secondly, I'm going to be talking about equal opportunities. This is also within a non-elite environment. So coaching should be accessible to all without prejudice. So examples of things why people have not been allowed to participate in sport is because of their age, their gender, race, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, socio-economic status, or ability. So the good thing about non-elite sport is that the idea of it is to help improve those who may not have a good ability at sport and just want to get better. So no matter what their age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, or socio-economic status, they should be allowed to become involved with the sport that they choose, as everyone should have the same rights in which what they want to do, what sport they want to play in. So for instance, with Burnbridge Wanderers, which Simon Windrum is involved with, they have a range of different age groups in which they have teams. So no matter what the age of the child, they can always become involved with the team and fit in with the right age group. The gender, within the FA, there's a rule that up to a certain age group of under 16s, girls and boys can play together within the football club. So gender cannot be a reason for an equal opportunity not to occur. And then ethnicity or race are always accepted at lower levels, because obviously it's not a reason to discriminate someone because of this. It can be harder to give people equal opportunities within elite sport, as you see with teams in the Premier League, or for instance in the Women's Premier League, you won't find two genders playing football together. Ability also is a reason why people don't make elite sport, is because if they're not simply good enough to be at that level, then they won't be allowed to go and play for the big teams. This is why it's good at non-elite level, because no matter what their ability, they can always go along to training and play matches to help improve themselves at the sport that they're interested in.